Welcome to lesson number 4. We've reached this far where we're going to be learning how we can change from ordinary farming or conventional farming to organic farming. So there are a number of things which you're supposed to put into consideration before you change from conventional farming to organic farming. And the way you change is going to affect your results greatly. So many people have failed here, and many people don't know how to change from conventional farming to organic farming. They may have a burning desire and a burning passion to change, but how to change? So this is where we're going to be learning how you can change from being an ordinary farmer or a conventional farmer to organic farming. So you see, we should aim to be different from what the majority are doing. We should aim to live and produce foods which are of high quality compared to the quality which the majority are producing. So it begins with the right decision. When you decide to make a difference in life, you find that people are going to be inspired. People are going to be encouraged that this thing is very, very possible. And one thing I'm going to teach you, I'm going to tell you in organic farming is that you should not learn from failures. Now, there are people who have failed, but they have rose up again. But there are people who have failed and quitted. Now, those are very dangerous. You should not associate yourself with those people because they will tell you everything about how organic farming doesn't work. So you learn from people who have succeeded in organic farming because they're going to tell you that yes, you're going to fail, but it is very possible to rise up again and continue growing your crops. So changing from conventional farming to organic farming, there are a number of steps you have to put into consideration. So, but before I dive into that, I have a few things which I would want to highlight. Number one is about the soil pH. You see, the soil pH is a scale which is ranging from 0 to 14. So you have to understand that soil pH is going to affect the nutrients in the soil and how your plants are going to be accessing those nutrients. So like from 1 up to 6, that is acidic levels. So the smaller the number, the higher the acidic levels. So you should understand that when when the acidic levels of the pH are high in the soil, it doesn't hold nutrients. They leach into the soil. And one thing you should understand is that chemical fertilizers make the soil become acidic. As a result, the soil is not going to be holding nutrients. They are leached into the subsoil where the roots cannot reach. As a result, your field becomes depleted and the nutrients cannot be accessed by the crops. So it's always very important not to destroy the soil. It's always very important to maintain the soil healthy. As a result, it is going to have the nutritional holding capacity. So when the acidic levels are low, meaning it cannot hold nutrients. When the acidic levels are when the pH is high, meaning from 1 to 6, it is acidic. Then 14 is neutral, that's the pH for the water. Then from 8 to 14, that is the alkaline. So when the soil is alkaline, it holds the nutrients in a form a plant cannot access them. The nutrients are there, but they cannot be accessed by the plant. So depending on how your soil is, if the pH is low, it is going to have complications. When it is too high, it is going to have some complications. But we're going to learn about how you can work on your pH organically. You find that there are crops which fix the soil pH. So if there is any complication with your soil, there is nutritional deficiency, there is pH fluctuation, there are nematoids, there are diseases. So there is a process you can do to clean and heal your soil. Then the other thing we should also understand is the issue of soil nutrients. Recently we're learning about the soil science, and I would encourage you to study more about the soil. Learn more about the soil, because that's the main thing you're going to be using in agriculture. So having a better understanding of the soil will give you a better chance to grow any crop and deal with any disease, because the secret in farming is in the soil. That's where the secret lies. So you should learn on how best you can work with the soil. So you should understand, what do plants need to grow? So there are 4 primary things which a plant needs to grow. Number 1, it needs sunlight. Sunlight is free of charge. You don't pay Zesco or any company to get sunlight. Number 2 is air. You don't pay for air. Number 3, it is nutrients. Nutrients also, they are readily available in the soil, but you have to cooperate with nature to make them available to the plant. Then number 4, it is moisture, which is water. So depending on how you work on your soil, it can develop the capacity to hold more moisture compared to conventional farming. So air has to get into the soil so that the plant can access it. So meaning your soil is not supposed to be compact. I'm sure you have seen when you're putting some water, you're watering your plant, there are some bubbles. So water occupies some air spaces, and as soon as possible, then that water, when that water is gone, then the air goes back again. So air plays a critical role in the development of plant. That's where gases exchange happen. Nitrogen is a gas also, and air is also a gas. There's oxygen there. There's also carbon dioxide is also a gas, and those are gases which the plant use. So your soil should be loamy, which is a combination 45% sand, 25% silt, 25% clay, and 5% humus. So that combination allows air to easily get into the roots, so that there can be that gaseous exchange, and also it can supply gas for the living organisms in the soil. So number 2, we talk about the issue of moisture. A plant needs moisture to grow. So you have to make sure that the way your soil is, water can easily get into the soil. So no wonder it's a sin in farming to step on the bed. So what you are doing when you step on the bed, you're compacting the soil. So when the soil is compacted, air cannot go through, living organisms cannot go through, roots cannot go through, even air itself cannot go through, because it is already compacted. So you don't have to step on your bed. So make sure that the way your soil is, water and air can easily access any part without any hardships. To try whether your soil has got good drainage, the porosity, how is water going down, you have to pour water on it and see how long it takes for it to go down. Then there's the issue of sunlight. Sunlight is very critical for a plant to grow, because that is where the process of photosynthesis happens. So there's the conversion of energy from the sun to the plant. Then the plant is feeding the living organisms, and the living organisms are feeding the plant, and the plant is feeding you. So that's how that cycle is, from the sun to the plant to the living organisms, then back to the plant, then back to to the human being. That's a complete cycle. So sunlight is very, very critical. So you have to make sure that wherever you plant your crops, make sure that they have got enough sunlight to make energy. Then lastly is the issue of nutrients. Plants need nutrients to grow. So when we talk about plant nutrients, there are different types of nutrients. They are categorized in 3 groups. There is primary, then there is secondary, then there is trace elements. So with the primary, that's where we find the NPK, that is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So the primary nutrients are needed in bulk. These are needed in big quantities. So, and what you should understand, now this is an assignment which I'm going to give you on soil nutrients. What you should understand what is the use of each and every nutrient, and what are the signs of nutritional deficiency. Maybe let's say, for example, when a crop doesn't have enough nitrogen, the leaves tend to be yellowish. When it doesn't have iron, the edges of the leaves are going to be a little bit yellowish as well. When there's no potash, there's no phosphorus, there are symptoms which say, okay, here there's this, there's in that nutrient. So I'm going to give you an assignment. You should study what is the role of each and every nutrient. There are about 16 of them, starting with the primary ones, then the secondary ones, then the trace elements. But one thing you should understand is that a plant needs nutrients, and these nutrients play critical role in root development, disease defense mechanism, the growth of the plant, the maturity of the plant. So once all these nutrients are provided, meaning a plant is going to be growing vigorously. So on the other side, what you should understand is that when conventional agriculture, they normally sell, maybe let's say they are selling NPK, that is compound D, NPK. So you find that there's a certain percentage of nitrogen, there's a certain percentage of phosphorus, there's a certain percentage of potassium. Only 3 nutrients. Now, these nutrients mostly they work on the size, the appearance, and also the growth of the plant. So a plant needs more than nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And the bad thing about conventional chemical fertilizers is that when that chemical fertilizer gets into the soil, it depletes or chases away the existing natural fertilizers. So meaning your plant is only going to be depending on 3. So do your own research. You can go on the internet, you go on Google, you go on YouTube, but make sure that you acquaint yourself with the soil very, very well. So changing from conventional farming to organic farming isn't that all easy. I don't know what example I can give, but I would say maybe if you are changing from a meat diet to a vegetarian diet, it's not an easy thing. You should understand how you're going to be balancing the nutrients. You should understand what are you going to replace that with that. So all those things must be put into consideration, because mostly what a farmer suffers from, just 2 things: disease and the nutrients. Mostly this is what worries us. Water, we can supply water, but these 2, disease and nutrients. But now we're going to learn on how you can change from this stage to the other side. So the key thing in transiting from organic farming, from conventional farming to organic farming, the key thing is the soil. That's the primary key thing. So you should understand that when you are changing, before you do any other thing, you have to work on your soil. When you work on your soil, you build your soil to an extent that it supports life. Then your crops won't have problems with diseases. You won't have problem with the roots going deep, because the key thing with the size of the crops is the deeper the roots goes down, then the bigger the plant is going to be, because twice the height of the taproot, the height of a tree is twice the depth of the taproot. So meaning the deeper the taproot, the taller the crop is going to be. I'm sure I've seen that maybe you've planted a field. The side where it's very hard, your crops want to grow very tall. The side where it's very soft, the crops are going to grow very tall. The reason is that when the taproot is going deep, then the plants are going to be growing taller. So the key thing is you have to work on the soil. Because when you're using chemical fertilizer, you're using pesticide, these herbicides, what happens is that these chemicals, they destroy life in the soil. Number one, when you talk about synthetic fertilizers, these fertilizers are foreign in the soil. They're not natural. And nature does not work with artificial. They don't come together. So the point is, you first have to work on the soil, bring back life into the soil, control the pH, because these things, they have messed up the soil. So you have to work on it. And there's no soil which is beyond repair. Every soil can be worked on. So when we talk about the fertilizers, we say they increase acidic levels, they deplete the nutrients. So you have to bring back those nutrients. When you talk about herbicides, these weed killers, very, very deadly. So what they do, they destroy the weeds. You need those weeds to cover the soil throughout the other seasons you're not growing. But what do? We wipe them out and the soil becomes very compact. There is nothing which can grow there. Even the living organisms cannot live in there because of all those complications which we have introduced, those foreign things. And those chemicals, they even get into the plant. And I was very shocked. There's a research which was conducted. They say most of these crops which are grown conventionally, you find that they've got 90% of nitrogen. You find that the nitrogen which is there is more than what was put in the soil. And the correct formula of feeding plants is you feed the soil. The soil is going to feed the plant, then the plant is going to feed you. You don't feed the plant directly, neglecting the soil. But that's what we do when we are using fertilizers. We don't care about the soil, we only care about the plant. Now that's being a short-sighted farmer, because sooner or later you're going to be out of the business of farming. So having looked at that on working on the soil, we have to look how can we build the soil. So there are different methods you can use to build your soil, but the easiest and the cheapest would be using green manure. So with the currently available green manure, there's one buckwheat, there's sun hemp, there's cowpeas, and even the legume family. Now these crops grow extremely very, very fast. I planted buckwheat like it must be like 3 weeks ago. It is now flowering. They grow extremely very fast. Now this is how these cover crops work. So with sun hemp, buckwheat, and even cowpeas, they've got deep root systems. So, and they are very tough. No matter how hard it is, they're going to go down deep. So when they go down, they are going to pull the nutrients which are beyond the reach of most crops, bring them to the top. Then they have got nodules which trap nitrogen out of the air into the soil. You see, nitrogen is everywhere in the sky, and whenever you see a lightning flashing, you as a farmer, you have to celebrate, because those are thousands and millions of tons of nitrogen being offloaded into the soil. So those nodules, they've got sensors, antennas which trap nitrogen out of the soil, out of the air into the soil, so that plants can use it. And when those roots decompose, they are creating room, like tunnels where the roots are going to be passing to access water and nutrients. And these are nitrogen fixing crops. And they don't only fix nitrogen, they also fix the pH. So they are able to sense that there's something wrong here, so they are fixing. And they also invite the presence of living organisms. So they are inviting life in the soil. So you plant them, then you let them grow like for maybe 30 days. That's when they are about to start flowering. They are very, very fresh and easy to decompose. Then you plow them back. You may use a tractor if you are doing commercial. You may use even a hoe if you are doing a small portion. But the reason what we are doing right now, we are working on on the soil. Then to make sure that we get the optimum or the best results, once this has been plowed back, or you've just thrashed it, what it's going to do is going to decompose within a short period of time. Then it's going to add humus to the soil, meaning the texture and the structure of your soil is going to change. When we talk about the texture of the soil, we're talking about how it feels. The structure we're talking about how does it look like. So when you add that organic matter, it is high nitrogen, it is high even these other trace elements, and it also builds the soil and invites soil life, because living organisms, they eat organic matter. So if organic matter is not there, then they are going to start destroying your crops. One reason why termites give us problems is because they don't have food to eat. So they start eating our crops. When we do the right thing in our fields, termites are going to be existing, but not to attack our crops, but adding value to the soil. So these crops, they are very, very, very important to build the soil. They rejuvenate the soil. They bring the soil back to life. Green manure. So the other thing you can use also is you can use solid manure. You can use cow manure, you can use sheep manure, you can use goat manure. But I recommend a mixture of cow and the goat, or cow and sheep. Reason being is that the nutritional content in these manures is different. So the percentages of nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium and these other trace elements is different in every animal. And one thing you should understand is that the quality of the manure is judged or is determined by the quality of food an animal eats. Now, here I've got a question. I've got something which I'm still researching on the issue of these broiler chickens, the manure which they produce. So my concern here is on the chemicals which are used to raise these birds. I haven't yet come to a conclusion, but I feel that there's a possibility that some chemicals from that manure can also be introduced in the soil, then to the plant, and they're very high in nitrogen. So I recommend using animals which are raised in a healthy way. So because we're trying to get rid of these foreign chemicals into our bodies. So when you talk about the issue of this solid manure, they work when you mix cow and the goat. So goat manure works a little bit faster compared to cow manure. And when cow manure can start feeding the crops, then after that, what is this manure? Cow manure takes it up from there. Then the process keeps going, and it can work even for a year. So the point is, when you are dealing with organic farming, you cannot develop the soil in 2 months, 3 months. It can take 6 months, it can take a year, it can even take 2 years. But the good thing is that when the soil is built, the results are going to be excellent forever. You to keep on developing from one level to the other. So meaning you're going to deal with diseases like sun hemp, it suppresses nematodes. So they fix the problems in the soil. So that's where the issue is. When your soil is clean and purified from toxins like what sun hemp does, once that is done, then your soil is going to be good for any crop. Adding manure is going to change the texture, also it is going to change the structure and also the moisture holding capacity, and the green manure, meaning your soil is going to be holding a lot of moisture. And given that maybe there's a drought, your soil will still be able to hold a lot of moisture. So all these things are done, you are preparing, you are changing from one level to the other. And I would advise you, what you're supposed to do, you don't have to begin with the crops which use up a lot of nutrients. You should begin with nitrogen fixing crops. Let's say for example the family of legumes. You grow legumes. You may start with groundnuts. You may start with beans. You may start with sunflower, soybeans. So start with crops which fix nitrogen in the soil. So don't start with heavy feeders like tomatoes. Don't start with heavy feeders like onion. Crops which are using nutrients but are not putting back anything. So the thing is, you are changing, but begin with feeding the soil, work on your soil, and once your soil is worked on, you have worked on the issue of diseases, you have worked on the presence of nutrients, because nutrients, like with the trace elements, they are in abundance in the soil. So you have worked on these things, they're going to be made available to the plant. So that, like for example, the sunlight is always available, but you cannot receive sunlight when you are inside the house. You have to go outside to access sunlight. So nutrients are readily available in the soil, but we have to make them available to the plant by doing the right thing to the soil. So once you've done the right thing, then these nutrients are going to be made available to the plant. So the key thing is you work on the soil, and the soil is going to be a good environment for microbes and living organisms to make nutrients for your plant, and your plant is going to be feeding you. So I hope this is going to help you as you're going to be changing from conventional farming to organic farming. Once you've worked on your soil, I can assure you that the results are going to be so excellent. A perfect example would be that of nature. When you go outside in the bush, you find that there are different varieties of crops and they're looking healthy, they don't have diseases. Why is it that diseases are only found in the crops we are growing? That's the question you should be asking yourself. Why? But I can assure you that when you come back to the principles of nature and adhere to them, you're going to discover that you're going to avoid a lot of problems. And also we're going to look at the kind of irrigation system which is best in organic farming, which does not destroy the soil. So do the assignment, do your own research in line with how you can change from organic farming to from conventional farming to organic farming, and see how we can help each other. If you have got a question, you can ask me, and please participate in each and every course by commenting, asking questions and contributions. You may even suggest maybe we have left out something. I don't know everything, but from what I know, this is what I've shared. This was the Radical Farmer and Organic Farming Made Easy. Have a good day.